Marcus Thompson was not just any billionaire, he was self-made. The son of a working-class family from Harlem, he had clawed his way to the top with grit, intelligence, and an uncanny ability to predict market trends before they materialized. His fortune had been built on a tech empire, but his real passion was hospitality. Years ago, when he'd purchased the Grand Retreat, an exclusive luxury resort nestled on the coast of California, it had been with the dream of creating a place where anyone, no matter their background, could feel at home in the lap of luxury. Today, however, was different. Marcus, always a hands-on owner, was visiting the Grand Retreat incognito. He didn't like fanfare, he preferred to see his investments from the eyes of a regular guest. No luxury cars, no staff meeting him at the door, just Marcus, his old black hoodie, jeans, and a worn pair of sneakers. The front doors to the Grand Retreat were nothing short of magnificent, towering structures of glass and steel, reflecting the ocean beyond them. As Marcus approached, he allowed himself a moment of pride. This was his, a testament to his journey. He pulled his hoodie a bit tighter around his face as he approached the entrance. "Excuse me, sir," a voice cut through his thoughts, stopping him in his tracks. Marcus turned to see a middle-aged white man in a crisp hotel uniform standing at the door, eyebrows furrowed. Behind him, the towering glass doors remained firmly shut. "Yes," Marcus replied, a bit surprised at the tone. He had always prided himself on hiring a friendly, welcoming staff. This felt tough. The man looked Marcus up and down, his lips curling in distaste. "Guests enter through the main lobby. This area is restricted." Marcus blinked. "I'm here for the hotel." "I don't care," the man interrupted, crossing his arms. "No loitering around here. Security's already been notified." "Loitering?" Marcus echoed, the words sinking like a stone in his chest. "I'm a guest." But the man had already turned away, tapping into his radio. "Yeah, we've got a trespasser near the entrance," he said in a low voice, as though Marcus couldn't hear him. "Looks like one of those homeless folks from downtown wandered up here." Marcus felt his hands clench into fists at his sides. His mind raced. Was this really happening? In his own hotel? "Look, I don't know who you think you're talking to," Marcus began, voice hardening, but before he could finish, two large security guards appeared, flanking him. They were younger, maybe in their 20s, and they seemed less aggressive than the doorman, but there was no mistaking the skepticism in their eyes as they looked him up and down. "Sir," one of them said, his tone placating but firm, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Marcus stared at them in disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me." "Let's not make a scene," the other guard said, stepping closer. His hand hovered near his radio, as though ready to call in backup. A part of Marcus wanted to scream, wanted to shout at them that this was his hotel, that he was the one who signed their paychecks. But another part of him, the part that had lived a lifetime of racial microaggressions and slights, knew that this wasn't about logic or ownership. This was about something else entirely. 20 minutes later, Marcus found himself standing at the end of the long driveway that led up to the Grand Retreat. The sun was setting behind him, casting a long shadow across the immaculate lawn, but Marcus wasn't in the mood to appreciate the view. He had been escorted out. Physically. The staff had treated him like an intruder, a threat. His status as one of the most successful black entrepreneurs in the country hadn't mattered in the slightest. He wasn't Marcus Thompson, billionaire. He was just a black man in a hoodie who didn't belong. His phone buzzed in his pocket, but Marcus ignored it, staring up at the gleaming facade of the hotel. He was furious, but even more than that, he was hurt. He'd built this place from the ground up, poured his heart and soul into creating a sanctuary where people could escape the ugliness of the world. And yet, here he was, standing on the outside, looking in. Marcus finally pulled out his phone and saw a message from his assistant. "Lily, I confirmed with the manager, everything is ready for your visit. Do you want me to arrange for your usual welcome team?" His fingers hovered over the screen for a moment before he responded. "I want to do this alone." He'd come here with a purpose, to experience the hotel as a regular guest, to see how his staff treated people when they didn't know who they were dealing with. Well, he had gotten his answer, and it wasn't a good one. As he stood there, contemplating his next move, a car pulled up to the entrance. A sleek black sedan, the kind Marcus usually traveled in when he wasn't trying to fly under the radar. The door opened, and a white man in a tailored suit stepped out, flanked by two staff members who greeted him with wide smiles and deferential bows. Marcus recognized him instantly: Richard Cartwright, a real estate magnate and one of his frequent business associates. Cartwright walked into the lobby without so much as a glance toward Marcus. The contrast couldn't have been starker. Marcus was fuming now, but he didn't storm in. Instead, he took a deep breath and walked away from the hotel, heading toward the small town nearby. If he was going to handle this, he needed a clear head. As Marcus sat on a bench overlooking the ocean, his mind drifted back to his childhood. Growing up in Harlem, his mother had always told him, "Son, you're going to have to work twice as hard to get half as far. And when you get there, they still might not let you in." He'd fought against that belief for years, determined to prove that his talent, his intelligence, his success would transcend the color of his skin. But moments like these reminded him that no matter how high he climbed, there would always be people who saw him as an outsider. He remembered the first time he'd been mistaken for a valet at a high-end restaurant, or the countless times people had assumed he was the athlete or entertainer in the room, never the CEO. Those moments had stung, but he had always brushed them off. Now, though, standing on the sidelines of his own creation, he couldn't ignore it anymore. It was more than just a personal slight. It was a symptom of something deeper, a systemic problem that ran through every facet of society. Even in a place like the Grand Retreat, where Marcus had built a culture of inclusivity and diversity, bias still lurked beneath the surface. He needed to do something, not just for himself, but for every person who had ever been made to feel like they didn't belong. The next morning, Marcus returned to the Grand Retreat, but this time, he wasn't alone. He had called Lily and instructed her to meet him at the hotel with the management team. As he walked up the driveway, dressed in a sharp suit and tie, he noticed the shift in the air. The same doorman who had thrown him out the night before now greeted him with a wide smile. "Good morning, sir," the doorman said, bowing slightly. "How can I assist you today?" Marcus looked him dead in the eye. "I'd like to speak to the manager, please." The doorman blinked, his smile faltering for a split second. "Of course, sir. Right this way." As they walked through the lobby, Marcus couldn't help but notice how differently the staff treated him. The same security guards who had escorted him off the property now stood at attention, nodding politely as he passed. The air was thick with unspoken tension, and Marcus felt a surge of anger bubbling up inside him. When they reached the manager's office, Marcus was greeted by a nervous-looking woman in her 40s, wearing a tailored black suit. She extended her hand, her eyes flickering with recognition. "Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "It's an honor to have you here. I wasn't aware you were visiting." "That's because I didn't announce it," Marcus interrupted, his voice cold. "I wanted to experience the hotel as a regular guest. And let me tell you, it was an experience I won't forget anytime soon." The manager paled, her eyes widening. I don't understand. What happened?" Marcus took a deep breath, his eyes locking onto hers. "I was thrown out of my own hotel last night. By your staff." The manager's face drained of color. She stammered, trying to find the right words, but Marcus didn't give her a chance. "I was mistaken for a trespasser, assumed to be homeless, and treated like I didn't belong here. All because of how I looked. And it wasn't just one employee, it was multiple. This is a systemic problem, and it reflects poorly not just on you, but on the entire establishment." The room fell silent as the weight of Marcus's words sank in. What followed was a series of difficult conversations, not just with the manager, but with the entire staff. Marcus insisted on a full review of the hotel's policies, focusing on unconscious bias training and creating a culture of respect and inclusion. It wasn't an easy process. There was resistance, defensiveness, and moments where Marcus questioned whether real change was possible. But he was determined. He wasn't just fighting for himself, he was fighting for every person who had ever been made to feel like they didn't belong in spaces where they deserved to be. In the months that followed, the Grand Retreat underwent a transformation, not just in its operations, but in its philosophy. The hotel became a leader in the industry for its commitment to diversity and inclusion, and Marcus's experience served as a catalyst for change. But perhaps the most important change was within Marcus himself. He realized that no matter how much success he achieved, he could never fully escape the biases of the world. But that didn't mean he had to accept them. He had the power to challenge those biases, to confront them head-on, and to create spaces where people were seen for who they truly were, not just how they appeared. In the end, the Grand Retreat became more than just a luxury hotel. It became a symbol of progress, a place where everyone was welcome, and where Marcus Thompson, no matter what he was wearing, would always be seen as the man who owned it. Years later, the Grand Retreat stood as a testament to Marcus's vision, not just of luxury, but of equality. It was a place where people of all races, backgrounds, and walks of life could come together and experience the beauty of the world, without the weight of prejudice hanging over them. And every time Marcus walked through the front doors, he was greeted with the respect he had earned, not because he was the billionaire owner, but because he was a human being, just like everyone else.